There is an old Hebrew proverb that has accompanied me for many years. Not everything that gives light is fire. Some things only shine to blind you. A simple sentence, but with incredible depth. Because sometimes something seems to bring us clarity, but in truth it makes us blind. That is exactly what happens with certain people. They enter your life as teachers, as friends, sometimes even as soulmates. But at some point, you feel empty, drained, confused, as if you had lost yourself. Such people do not come to contribute something positive. They come to take. Not loudly, not aggressively. Often they appear charming, attentive, full of compliments. But inside you feel something is wrong. A void spreads within you, a fog that clouds your sight. I call them human demons. They are not there to grow with you, but to claim your energy, your peace, your clarity for themselves. The worst part, many do it unconsciously because they are so deeply entangled in their own toxic patterns that they do not even realize what they are doing to others. The first warning you must recognize is this: they twist reality with surgical precision. These are not obvious lies, but subtle manipulations. They change the context, make you believe you misunderstood something or overreacted, and when you defend yourself, suddenly you are the problem. Too sensitive, too emotional, too unstable. In psychology, this is called gaslighting. It is a form of emotional abuse that makes you doubt your perception. When you no longer trust yourself, you adopt their view. And that is emotional dependency. I remember a client whose partner constantly told her she was dramatic. She exaggerated, she misinterpreted. At first, she defended herself. But over time, she began to believe him. She went silent, doubted herself, lost trust in her own intuition. And that is exactly the goal of such people, that you give up your inner voice. Doubting yourself is not weakness. It is often a normal reaction to continuous manipulation. Do not blame yourself for trusting, but do not justify the behavior. If someone repeatedly twists your perception, that is abuse, not love. Your mind needs clarity and order. If someone systematically confuses you, it attacks your mental health. It is hard to recover, but possible. The first step is to recognize and say, what is happening here is not right. When I work with people on self-worth, I always emphasize one thing: trust your perception. If you feel that something is wrong, then it probably really is. If after a conversation you feel insecure, sad, or tense, listen to your feeling. Your body does not lie. Maybe this is your first video from me. If so, here you will find honest, psychologically grounded content to help you strengthen your emotional independence. If you feel that these topics are good for you, you can subscribe. No obligation, only a choice. Because the greatest danger of gaslighting is not the confusion in the moment, but the creeping change of your identity. You begin to censor yourself, to control yourself before you speak. You no longer live in your reality, but in that of another. That is not a relationship, that is a prison. But you can get out of it. You can rebuild yourself, step by step. And each time you trust your inner voice again, a piece of your strength returns. The first step to freeing yourself is to restore your inner authority, to listen to yourself again, to believe yourself, and to recognize yourself as the expert of your own life. In the end, the old Hebrew proverb takes on its full meaning. Not everything that gives light is fire. Some people seem to shine, but only to blind you. You were not born to live in darkness, but to see clearly and upright. With that inner brightness that arises when you allow yourself to be your own lighthouse, do not be deceived by gentle words, kind gestures, or beautiful intentions. True goodness does not need to confuse you. True empathy does not need to disarm you. If someone clouds your clarity, they steal more than just your peace. They take the wheel of your life, and that wheel belongs only to you. One of the most insidious strategies a human demon uses is false empathy. That is dangerous because it looks like compassion, but in reality, it is control. Such people listen to you, look you in the eyes, maybe even cry with you, but it does not come from genuine compassion, but from calculation, interest, benefit. Many confuse attention with affection, care with manipulation. Not every look that holds you does so to support you. Sometimes they are only watching you to find your weak spots, to know where they can hit you. I have often heard, "No one has ever understood me like he did." And shortly afterwards, that same person was emotionally broken. Why? Because they mistook the facade of empathy for the essence of empathy. Real empathy needs no stage, no audience, no perfect words. It shows in what someone does when no one is watching, how they treat people from whom they can expect nothing. The false empath shows compassion only when it benefits them, when someone is watching, or when they can use it later against you. A phrase that always sets off all my alarm bells is, "No one will ever love you like I do." If someone constantly emphasizes how good they are to you, something is wrong. True love and real empathy do not need to justify themselves. You simply feel them. A particularly refined version of this deception is the constant rescuer. The false empath appears as a helper, always there, always ready to support you, but not because they truly want to lift you up, but because they want you to remain dependent, so that you believe that without them you cannot live. That is emotional blackmail, an invisible chain made of guilt and gratitude. Not every constant helpfulness is kindness. Some people are always there because they need control. They must feel indispensable. When you grow stronger, you lose your value to them. So they disguise their compulsion to control as care, closeness, or love. You may know this feeling. Someone listens to you perfectly, says the right things, but inside you feel something is missing. The words fit, but the soul does not. That is not imagination, that is your intuition. Toxicity does not have to be loud or aggressive. Sometimes it comes wrapped like a gift, with a ribbon of unconditional love. It is particularly difficult when such people are seen outwardly as kind, spiritual, or helpful. Then you doubt yourself. Am I the problem? Why do I feel so empty when everyone says, "She's so nice"? This discrepancy between what you see and what you feel can destroy your self-esteem. But believe me, your feeling is real. Such people adapt to your story. If you have learned to suppress your emotions or always show gratitude, even when something harms you, they know exactly which buttons to press. They disguise themselves as what you were missing, and that is precisely why they seem so convincing. But true love does not disguise itself. Real empathy is not a technique. It is there, or it is not. So if you feel that something is off, that words and attitude do not match, trust that feeling. That is your truth. Recognizing false empathy is not a sign of distrust, but of self-respect. Not everyone who approaches you comes to share. Some come to take. Watch how you feel around them, not what they say. Your body knows it first, your soul too. The insidious thing about false empathy is that it shines brightest in moments of crisis. It seems to save you, but the price is high. Emotional dependency. Suddenly you feel guilty when you set boundaries, because they were there for you. But that is not compassion, that is control. True empathy stays even when it has nothing to gain. It respects, understands, and lets go without punishment. Whoever accompanies you only as long as they have power over you does not love. They manipulate. They use very deliberate words, chosen so that you feel understood, but also so that you become dependent. Only with me can you talk about this without being judged. I am the only one who really knows you. No one will ever understand you like I do. Such sentences are meant to isolate you from others, to lock you into a beautiful but dangerous bubble, an illusion of closeness that is in fact an emotional cage. The secret to seeing through all of this lies in the context. Watch how this person behaves when no one is looking, when there is no audience. That is where their true face appears. I have heard many stories of people who lived for years with someone who outwardly seemed generous, loving, and empathetic, but at home was cold, dismissive, and emotionally cruel. Because the outer image was so flawless, it was doubly hard for the victims to speak the truth. No one believed them, or they no longer believed themselves. One of the strongest tools of such manipulation is constant contradiction. Warm today, cold tomorrow. Sometimes charming, sometimes distant. These shifting phases are addictive because you are always waiting for the good version, and when it appears briefly, you cling to it as proof that everything could be good again. But that kindness is calculated. It is part of the cycle, the emotional carrot that keeps you trapped. The human demon does not want to lose you, not out of love, but because you are their source of recognition, meaning, control. Many of these people do not act consciously evil. They only repeat their own patterns, but that does not excuse the harm. Pain remains pain, even if caused unintentionally. You do not have to understand someone so much that you tolerate what destroys you inside. Understanding is not the same as excusing. Growth means distinguishing between what is said and what you feel, between the one who holds you to build you up and the one who holds you so you cannot leave. In all the years I have accompanied people on this path, there is always that one moment, quiet, calm, but clear, when they realize this is not love. And from that moment something new begins, a different way to protect yourself, to preserve your energy, to reclaim your inner peace. Because true empathy does not hurt. It does not confuse you. It does not belittle you. It does not demand explanations. It lets you breathe. If you feel restricted, diminished, or dependent, that is not real compassion, but a fake. And once you recognize it, the spell breaks. The supposed light turns out to be a glaring lamp shining in your face so that you cannot see anything, but you do see. Your body knows it. Your soul remembers. Your peace does not lie. There are people who do not shout, do not insult, and yet leave you completely empty. You talk with them and afterward you feel heavy, drained, as if you had lost energy. This is not superstition, it is psychology. Every relationship affects your nervous system. If you constantly have to watch what you say, if you are always controlling yourself, your body falls into chronic stress. And this silent stress eats you up from the inside. The human demon does not even need to be loud to weaken you. Their mere presence is enough. They need attention, affirmation, time, more and more, in ever subtler ways. They often appear as a victim, constant problems, worries, dramas. And you, with your open heart, feel responsible. But that is not help. That is energy loss. I have seen many kind-hearted people become shadows of themselves because they carried someone who never wanted to walk alone. These people live off your energy. They convince you that you are irreplaceable, that they would break without you. And that is the most dangerous form of manipulation, making you believe that you must stay even if inside you are already bleeding. Remember one thing, if after every meeting with someone you first need to recover, that is not a healthy relationship. It does not matter if it is a partner, friend, or relative. If the emotional balance is always negative, something is wrong. True connections give you strength, not emptiness. They expand you, they let you breathe. Of course, people sometimes need help and mutual support is normal, but there is a huge difference between a difficult period of life and an endless one-way street where you always give and the other always takes. Such personalities always manage to turn the topic toward themselves. No matter what you say, they twist it. That reminds me of me. And suddenly, you are back in the background, not because they want to share, but because they need your light to feel themselves. And at some point, you become their emotional caregiver, without pay, without pause, without recognition. You become responsible for their mood, their stability, their inner balance, and that is emotionally incredibly exhausting. It's like constantly putting out fires in someone else's house while your own slowly burns down. A patient once told me something I will never forget. I feel like a human charger. Every time she is near me, she plugs in, drains my energy, and as soon as she feels good again, she leaves. This description is perfect. They don't hit you, they don't yell at you, they use you, they treat your energy as if it were their property. And if you take only one thing with you today, let it be this. Your energy is sacred. It doesn't belong to everyone. Not everyone who seeks your closeness has the right to your listening, your time, your attention. Because what you give is never neutral. It always has a price. If you don't set boundaries, if you don't choose whom to open yourself to, you will one day be left empty and confused, not knowing why. Living next to a human demon is like an invisible leak in a tank. At first you hardly notice it. Only with time you have less and less strength, less joy, less patience. And then comes the most dangerous moment. You begin to believe that you are the problem. That you are too stressed, too distant, too unstable. But no, that is the effect of the exhaustion they create in you. This kind of energy loss doesn't show itself immediately, but your body sends warning signals. Sleep disturbances without a clear reason, concentration problems, inner restlessness before certain meetings, and undefined need for silence. Your body always knows, you've only learned to ignore it, and that costs you your mental health. So take this simple test. Observe after which people you feel charged, and after then you feel drained. Ignore what you should think. Pay attention to what you feel. Your body tells you exactly where the leaks are, and as soon as you recognize them, you can close them. Emotional exhaustion often disguises itself as closeness. I need you, you are my support, my balance, my everything. At first it sounds like love, but it's not love, it's dependency. Real affection makes you free, dependency makes you small. The human demon rarely feeds on violence, but on lack. They present themselves as vulnerable, misunderstood, as someone who only finds peace with you. And you, with your open heart, become their silent therapist, their daily emotional support. But this is not a mutual relationship. It is a one-way system. You give, you carry, you hold, and when you need something, the other is gone. I see this pattern again and again. People who are themselves completely exhausted hold up others who never ask how they are. Not because they couldn't, but because they don't want to. Their interest is not in you, but in your energy. They are masters at turning every conversation toward themselves. You say, I'm tired, I need some distance. And they answer, of course, every time I need you, you withdraw. In an instant you turn from exhausted into guilty. This is emotional vampirism. They turn your boundary into an injury against them, so you come back and take care of them again. Such relationships have a rhythm without pause. There is always a problem, a crisis, a drama, and without noticing, your life begins to revolve only around the other person's needs. Your calendar, your decisions, your conversations, everything adapts. You talk less about yourself, your joy fades. You become functional for the life of the other and slowly disappear from your own. Your body reacts before your mind understands it. Tension, digestive problems, insomnia, constant strain, as if you were always on alert. And this is no coincidence. Your nervous system has learned to always be ready to catch the next crisis. And I want to make something clear. It's not about avoiding all people with problems or becoming heartless. It's about recognizing that there are people whose way of life consists in taking without giving. And if you allow it long enough, you lose not only your peace, you lose yourself. The human demon also lives on emotional influence. They need to know that they move you, that you think of them, that their silence affects you. This power over your feeling is their food. And when you finally distance yourself, they will try to pull you back with pity, guilt, or nostalgia, with sentences like, after everything we've been through, how can you leave me alone now? But all this serves only one purpose, to make you available again, because being available is not the same as being present. You can sit next to someone and still be inwardly very far away. This happens when your soul is exhausted, when it closes itself to protect itself. The body can endure a lot, but the soul never lies. If something inside you says enough, it's not a coincidence. It means you have reached your limit. Some people who cannot shine themselves extinguish the light of others. If they cannot grow, they sabotage the growth around them because the progress of others reminds them of their own stagnation. Instead of letting themselves be inspired, they hold you back, not to go with you, but to keep you from moving forward. They surround themselves with conditional affection, with compliments that become demands, with support that mutates into control until you hardly move anymore without even realizing it. But one thing no one can ever take from you, your ability to wake up, to see clearly, to call things by their name, and to decide that your energy is not the fuel for other people's dramas, but the nourishment for your own dreams. You don't need permission to reclaim what belongs to you. You don't have to explain or justify your need for rest. As soon as you begin to respect your energy, everything changes. Learn to look without guilt. Feel who strengthens you and who weakens you, who rejoices when you shine and who gets nervous, who truly listens to you and who only waits for their turn to speak. These subtle differences are decisive. They show you where life is and where emptiness masquerades as closeness. Not everyone deserves your energy, not because everyone is bad, but because some don't know how to preserve it. You are not in this world to be the emotional battery of others. You are here to walk your own path with clarity and lightness. And that begins when you recognize that your energy is not meant to fill absences, but to ignite your own presence. There are wounds that leave no bruises, no loud arguments, no dramatic scenes, only silent, creeping wear. It is this emotional decay that slowly takes you away from yourself. Not suddenly, not in a single moment, but step by step. And at first it even feels like love. Beside a human demon, many things feel like devotion. You give your time, your preferences, your decisions, your silence. You do it out of affection, out of empathy, in the name of peace. At first it seems noble, almost mature. You tell yourself, this is how relationships work. You have to give in. But eventually you realize that the scale never balances, that giving in has become a habit, that compromise is just a more elegant word for surrender. Everything starts with little things. You no longer listen to your favorite music because it bothers them. You change the way you express yourself because you're told you are too loud or too cold. You plan your free time around the needs of the other. You avoid friends. You postpone decisions just to avoid tension. And without noticing, you blur your own outline. This erosion of your identity doesn't happen because you are weak, but because you are exposed to a form of manipulation disguised as care. I only say this because I love you. It's for your own good, and you, because you are reflective, begin to believe they might be right. You don't just adapt, you start doubting your former self. From then on, you lose your inner center. You begin to define yourself from the outside, seeking validation to know what is right. You become the mirror of other people's needs instead of the voice of your own truth. The insidious part is that it's easy to mistake this for personal growth. I'm changing to become better. I'm learning to give in. I'm practicing humility. But it's not humility if you have to stay silent so the other person feels comfortable. It's not growth if you feel smaller than before. And it's not real transformation if it requires you to constantly deny yourself. Often these people praise you when you adapt. They call you more mature, they say you've learned how to truly love. And because you really want to grow, you believe them. But they are not rewarding your growth. They are rewarding your disappearance. They package your self-abandonment as a virtue. And while you seek love, you give up piece by piece your very being. With time, something in you fades. You laugh less. Your spontaneity disappears. You filter every word before you speak it. Your ideas become smaller, safer, more adjusted, until only a reduced version of you remains. You function within the measure of the other, in a framework you never chose but grew used to, and then you say sentences like, I used to be able to speak in front of people. Now I feel awkward. I was always sociable. Now I prefer to stay at home. I don't even know when I lost myself. And when you start to truly look, you recognize that there was a turning point, a relationship that slowly began to shape you out of fear, out of the need to be accepted. A bond with a human demon often forces you to choose between yourself and the relationship. And out of love, out of loyalty, out of duty, you choose the relationship again and again, until one day you look in the mirror and no longer recognize yourself. You feel alien in your own body, dissolved in the expectations of the other. And the bitterest part is that this seemingly improved version of you is not happier, only calmer, more adjusted, more convenient for the outside world, but inwardly sadder. Because true happiness does not come from adaptation, but from expression. It comes from the freedom to be yourself, without fear, without a mask. This is one of the quietest forms of psychological violence. No visible wounds, no witnesses, nothing you could report. Outwardly, everything seems harmonious. Since he's been with her, he's become calmer. Since she has him, she's more balanced. Everyone applauds, no one asks the price, no one sees that this peace was bought with the loss of self, with censorship, renunciation, disappearance, and you must not confuse that with maturity. True maturity doesn't make you smaller, it makes you more authentic, clearer, freer. The other is emotional conditioning, taming the soul so it doesn't disturb, doesn't stir, doesn't rebel. But a tamed soul is not a peaceful soul, it is a captive one. What makes this slow erosion so dangerous is its gentleness. It doesn't begin with open prohibitions, but with harmless remarks, casual comments, small hints that mean nothing on their own, but over time weave into a net. That clothing doesn't look so good on you. I don't know if your friend is really good for you. You used to be more affectionate. What happened? You want to please, you want harmony, you want a stable relationship. And so you adapt. You think you're doing the right thing, but while you adapt, you lose yourself piece by piece. You begin to adopt ways of speaking, preferences, even attitudes that aren't yours. They slip in so quietly that you believe they come from within you, but they are imported, part of the adaptation program. And this has consequences. Every compromise you make out of fear of conflict or out of longing for approval sends the same message to your inner self. As you are not enough. This idea, once planted, grows like weeds. Suddenly you mistrust your own judgment. Every impulse is questioned, every need requires approval, and so you stop living. You only function as the version that is desired. I've worked with many people who say, "My life is fine, I'm not missing anything, but I feel a sadness I don't understand." And when we dig deeper, we don't find a catastrophe, but an accumulation of small self-abandonments, moments where one stayed silent instead of speaking, adapted instead of choosing, bent oneself not to disturb. This sadness is nothing but mourning for one's own self. It arises when you lose yourself to be seen, and in the end, you remain invisible anyway. This is the cruelest form of loneliness, living next to someone and yet feeling inwardly abandoned. You are there, but not present. You are appreciated, but not recognized. You exist, but you no longer inhabit yourself. And eventually this sentence comes, almost whispered, in therapy or in quiet reflection. I have betrayed myself. It is a painful but healing sentence, because it shows you finally see it. You did not lose yourself out of malice, but out of love. Out of a love that overwhelmed you, that demanded sacrifices that should never have been demanded. Finding yourself again afterwards takes time. It is not an easy or straightforward process, but it begins right here, in the moment when you stop apologizing for your own heartbeat.